Welcome to the third meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment and the Interim Joint Committee on Tourism, Small Business Technology for the 2021 interim. I'm glad to see everybody here in Louisville today. Co-Chair Schroeder is on baby watch, so I'm happy to fill in for him today as Vice Chair. And I know that we all wish he and Marcy well. I'm going to ask Sasha to call the roll. This being a joint meeting of two committees, she will have a lot to call on the roll for each committee separately. So those of you on both committees will be called twice.
Senator Gardler, Senator Carr, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills,
Here in person.
Senator Southworth,
Here remotely.
Senator Storm, Senator Thomas,
Here remotely.
Senator Wheeler,
Present.
Senator Wilson, Senator Yates.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Baker,
Present remotely.
Representative Banta,
Present remotely.
Representative Beckler,
Present in the room.
Representative Bojanowski,
Present in the room.
Representative Bray, Representative Brown,
Present in the room.
Representative Callaway, Representative Cantrell,
Here in the room.
Representative Elliott, Representative Freeland, Representative Gentry, Representative Hart, Representative Huff, Representative Johnson,
Present in the room.
Representative King. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, in the room.
Representative Kulkarni, Representative Lawrence, Representative Lockett, Representative Rowland,
Present remotely.
Representative Sharp, Representative Sheldon, Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Co-Chair Schroeder.
Present remotely, and thanks for the comments.
Thank you. Co-Chair Weber.
This is Senator Girdler. I missed the roll call, but I'm on here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Gardler. Senator Carr,
Here again.
Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills,
Here in person.
Senator Southworth,
Here remotely.
Senator Storm, Senator Thomas,
Here remotely.
Senator Wheeler,
Present in the room.
Senator Wilson, Senator Yates,
Still present here. Still present here remotely.
thank you. Representative Baker, Representative
Present
Beck,
remotely.
thank you. Representative Beckler, Representative Bojanowski, Representative Branscombe, Representative Brown, Representative Callaway, Representative Donahue, Representative Dotson, Representative Pfister, Representative Frazier, Representative Freeland,
Present in the room.
Representative Fugit, Representative Gooch,
Present in the room.
Representative Hale, Representative Heath, Representative Huff, Representative Kirk McCormick, Representative Koenig, Representative Lawrence, Representative Miller, Representative Palumbo,
Here in my Frankfurt office.
thank you. Representative Raymond, Representative Reed, Representative Roberts, Representative Rowland, Representative Sheldon, Representative Stevenson, Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present remotely.
Representative Tate,
Present in the room.
Representative Timoney,
Here from the beautiful 45th District.
Representative Wesley. Representative White. Co-Chair Schroeder. Co-Chair King.
Yes, ma'am, in the room.
Co-Chair Pratt.
Present remotely. Will Schroeder, thanks.
All right. We have a quorum. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from the July meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right. I should say the Economic Development and Workforce Committee. Do we also have a motion to approve the July meeting of the Tourism, Small Business and Information Technology Committee? All right, the minutes are approved. For those participating remotely, our committee staff is monitoring the chat function in the Zoom application. If you have a question or want to make a comment, please indicate in the chat box that you want to ask a question or make a comment. You can also let the staff know that you are present in the chat box if we didn't get you during the roll call. So if you are participating remotely, we would ask that you keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking. So with that, we'll proceed to our first item on the agenda, and that is the update from Kentucky Venues and David Gbac, President and CEO. I see him there in the audience. Please approach the podium, sir.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
And welcome to the Kentucky Convention Center.
Oh, they said your microphone's not on.
All right, thank you. Let me say good afternoon and welcome to the Kentucky Exposition Center and the home of the 117th Kentucky State Fair and the 118th World Championship Horse Show. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have some people with me. May I introduce them?
Certainly.
We have the chairman of our board, Mr. Mark Lynn. We have the vice chairman of the board, Mr. David Wallace, and also our general manager over here, David Moore, and our CFO, Tony Schrick, and let's see if there's anyone else here. We've got several different meetings as you do today, so our people are scattered around. Let me just say welcome. We're glad you're here, and I don't know how much time you want me to take, but I'll provide you an update, an overview where we are, maybe what some of our goals are, but you tell me when I'm taking up too much
It's my
time.
understanding that we are the last meeting for the day in this room, so take as much time as you need, but not too much.
Yes, sir. I understand, and we hope you have opportunity to enjoy the fair. For those of you, many of you I worked with, and I appreciate you being here today. And let me just say sincerely, we appreciate what the General Assembly has done to provide resources and opportunities for us to do some things with our properties. For those of you that may not be familiar, Kentucky Venues is the marketing name, the brand for the Kentucky State Fair Board, which is established, of course, as you know, in the law. By law, we're required to have a Kentucky State Fair, but we do many more things in addition to that. We operate the Kentucky International Convention Center in downtown Louisville, and then, of course, this facility here. I grew up in West Kentucky, showed Judge Cattle, been involved, livestock, that type of things, and used this facility as a young person when I was in FFA. Prior to retiring Kentucky Farm Bureau, I'd been involved, having recruited FFA nationally to Louisville, Kentucky several years ago, and been a sponsor. So I knew a little bit about facilities and living here for the last 40 years plus, I thought I knew a little bit about tourism. Quite frankly, I didn't know anything at all much about it. I was surprised the variety of shows and events that we host, the economic impact that it provides. For example, on a given year, about 68% of the hotels are occupied in this region because of the business between these two properties, this facility and the convention center downtown. We'll do pre-COVID 300 plus shows a year, about 200 here, about 100 to 125 downtown. Some of those come every year, some on a rotation basis, and some recruiting and adding to our books. Every week you flip the calendar, you got a new group. It might be a livestock group, it might be a medical group, it might be an engineering group, it could be construction, education, you name it. That's a variety of things that come through our facilities. With that, it takes a good management team and our staff. We combined our management teams. We have the same management team for both properties. We have a general manager at both. Their operations is over both, security is over both, CFOs over both. That's how we operate, HR is over both. From an efficiency standpoint, but also allows us to promote people within, maybe zigzag from one property to the other, and maintain that institutional knowledge. We actually occasionally will move clients from one property to the other, depending what their unique needs be and what their preference might be. We think that's important because we won't be successful as they are, and they are two very diverse properties. I'll brag a little bit if I may, just some of the recent recognitions. This year, Kentucky State Fair was recognized as top 5 in the country. In fact, we came in number 2. I visited some of those other state fairs over the years, and being a little bit biased, I thought we were number 1, but we know there's always, excuse me, room for improvement. The Kentucky International Convention Center was chosen as the best convention center in the Mid-South this last year. This facility was chosen as the best overall facility in what we do here, holding events and all in the same, so their own categories. So when you put those two together, we have a lot to offer. For example, here we have 1.2 million square feet of indoor property, 300 acres plus outside. Everything outside is just not for parking. We actually hold events outside, many of those events. I remember being in Chicago working with a group, Mr. Moore and I were there, and we were talking with a client, and also our representatives with Louisville Tourism were there. And we were competing for a show to return back to Louisville, and we were competing against New Orleans. I felt pretty good we had a chance for that because they had to do a lot of drilling. And if you're familiar with New Orleans, what the water table is. So I thought we had a pretty good shot for that. We got the business, but it wasn't because of the water table. They'd had a good experience here and wanted to come back. So it'll vary, probably 95% of the business in North America we can attract. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going after it. We see that as a part of our role here. We'll generate maybe 4 million people coming through our property annual basis. That's a lot of economic activity. And let me just share with you, we don't do it by ourselves. We have lots of partnerships. Louisville Tourism, I just mentioned, Cleo Battles here, the new president CEO. We work closely with Louisville Tourism, market together, work together. The Sports Commission, Louisville Sports Commission, we work closely with them. Back in July, we had 46 states and 4 countries here dealing with basketball and volleyball here on our property. We do a lot of that. September before COVID, we had the largest rock concert in North America held here, DWP, here on our property. We have the world's largest purebred livestock event, North American Livestock Show. Just give you an example of the diversity from one extreme to the other that we bring through our doors. So I'm really proud of our staff team and how they have taken ownership and want to do this. We ask our team on a daily basis. And when I came in this position, knowing that we were an agency, and I have the highest regard and respect, don't get me wrong, I understand the role of agencies and respect that, but we're competing with private business, the private sector, to bring some private sector concepts to the table so we can compete and be effective in that. I think that's critical. We ask our people every day to make decisions like they own it. Work is if their job depends on it. And if you do those things, generally, you'll get the right answer. And that's what we do. And our management team knows that none of us are experts. We all depend on each other. And one of us might have the idea, or maybe together we might get a hybrid solution to fix a problem and do that. So that's how we approach our business. And that's what we try to do. There was a day years back where these facilities sent Frankfurt a check. Now Frankfurt's sending us a check. Prior to COVID, we was getting pretty close financially to make that happen. Our goal is to continue down that road. We definitely appreciate the support. The financial support is critical to our operation, but likewise, we think we can do more to help do a lot of our own. I realize in a state like ours, the limited resources and dollars, we have to be efficient, we got to be creative, we got to find ways to do things. You know as well as I do, ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful reputation of cutting ribbons. We don't do much on maintenance. And thankful this legislature realized that the last couple of sessions and provide some dollars to allow us to do some things to move forward. I believe you got to take care of 2 things. You're going to be successful: your properties, facilities, and your people. And you got to do both of those if we're going to be in business and be able to attract the kind of business we want to be known for in the Commonwealth and do that. So that's the direction we're headed with your help. If you came in gate 1, those are our new gates. We're proud of those. I've learned a lot more about engineering, and when they start making changes, I'd like to have lights on this side of the gate too, saying goodbye, and here's the next event. But you notice we haven't quite got that like we want, but we're so proud of those gates. Those gates are 50 plus years old when they were replaced. We replaced the gate 6. We won't rest until we get all of them replaced. But in this day and time, the customer expects that. Be able to scan your tickets when you come through, be able to have wayfinding from electronic directions, get around the property. When we meet with clients about using our properties, one of the things they continue, how can we get more people on there quicker? So now we've increased the number of lanes. That helps get people into this facility quicker than what we normally would. So we're proud to be able to do that. You provide money to move the dirt out here on the south of Phillips Lane. If you notice out here on the south side of this building, east side of this, that's all been leveled. The big part of that cost was moving that dirt somewhere else. If we say just like a farm, if I own it, how would I manage it? We wind up using a lot of that dirt here, save transportation costs, and enhance that property of several acres that now we have for more marketing of sports. And ladies and gentlemen, sports is big business for us. It really is for our community to do that. But that allows us to utilize those dollars, save money, and enhance that property. And we've got different clients that want to use that, not just sporting, but trade show, outdoor events, and things of that nature too. So again, trying to enhance this. We realize our dollars are limited and we must spend our dollars wisely. So we don't want to just spend a dollar. We want to know how it will benefit the clients. Who are we courting to bring here? Who do we want to keep here? Pre-COVID, we were moving in the right direction. That stopped all of us like it did everybody. And we're running a deficit right now. And you understand that we are. We realize that, but we're climbing out of it. We got about 70 events scheduled between now and the end of the year. It's not going to be perfect, but we're getting the book business back on the books, working with our partners, and everybody's involved. Let me mention something else. We're proud that we have our Gbac Accreditation. If you're not familiar with that, that's a national accreditation that verifies that we have the capability, the protocols in place to deal with infectious diseases and the proper protocols for cleanliness and all that needs to be in sanitation. That's a good housekeeping seal of approval. When you're marketing, that's known in the trade, is that's what you're looking for. So they sell some level of comfort when they come here. But I don't get many questions about that now. Most of my questions are geared towards security. In fact, I'll mention, you may be familiar with the street rods. They come to Louisville, Kentucky. They have for 26 years, the first week of August. We had 70,000 people on the property during that 4-day period of time with them. A lot of good business in our economy. There's a house out of Memphis. A lot of cities want them. We had them here last year under a different scenario, but they wouldn't come unless we could really enhance our security. So by contract with the Kentucky State Police, as we have during the state fair, we were able to invest some dollars and allow them to feel comfortable coming here. And they had a great experience and they raved about the support of our security as well as LMPD and the Kentucky State Police. We get a lot more questions about that now. And we do have some deficits with relates to security. We need cameras, a lot of things we need that clients are looking for that we don't have access now that we really need to be competitive in that area to manage safety and security for our people. That's a big issue. That's one that we're moving toward trying to effectively address. Another thing we have, I've been here 3 years. We've had 4 major power outages since I've been here. The Secretary of Transportation in Washington was testifying and speaking in one of our meeting rooms on this wing, and all the power went out. In a room like this with no windows, you can imagine what security felt like. Everybody scrambled to deal with that. Some of this infrastructure is not as old as I am, but it's getting pretty close. And so we've had major power outages. We got almost 2,000 horses on our property this state fair for the World Championship Horse Show. We had a power outage just this week. It put a lot of horses and people at risk because of the heat, because we didn't have any utilities. The Department of Agriculture is a big partner of ours. We had a truck from them to go to Cincinnati and Evansville to get generators to come in here to make that work. But you can imagine if something goes wrong with meeting planning, you can write a refund, but you can't write a refund big enough to take care of embarrassment or loss of property and damage or the experience. And we don't want to be known for that. So we do have some infrastructure things we need to deal with. Our parking lots. Almost 30 years, sometimes more than that, nothing's been done to the asphalt. It's going to become a gravel pit if we're not able to do that. So we're setting priorities, trying to do what we can. But again, I want to say we really, truly appreciate all that the legislature has done to provide us opportunity to get some things done. And hopefully we can do our part to benefit the overall economy of the Commonwealth, protect our core, the Kentucky State Fair. On a normal year, pre-COVID, we have over 300,000 people come through our gates. We're running about 378 right now. So we're under, we realize that, but our goal for the last 2 years prior to COVID was have every county represented here. Ladies and gentlemen, we will reach that goal this year. And I want people from every county in Kentucky to feel like the state fair is part of what they do. We want to do that, enhance that opportunity for them. I think we're the largest classroom in the Commonwealth. We increased our school tours 78% before COVID. We won't have that this year, but that's what we were moving to. I've got one more thing I want to mention from an economic development standpoint. I've been talking with the Chambers of Commerce. I've had conversations with those in Frankfurt of the previous administration and this one about the fact that kind of like the World's Fair, we have so many innovative people here in Kentucky that do things, create businesses, invent things. We like to designate some space for them so where they can be nominated by their local chamber or their community or the Economic Development Cabinet, somebody, that they are selected to come and demonstrate their new invention, their new creativity of their business, what they're doing. We think that would be good to maybe attract investors for them, maybe provide them a market opportunity they've not had prior to that event, and maybe employ people. But also it might inspire others to say, I could do that. I could make that happen. And we're developing technology things here in all segments of our economy, much of it in agriculture, but even much of it outside of agriculture. So we'd like to do some of that. Again, that's our way of trying to help success, build success. And we'd like to do our part to that end. Let me just say, if you ever have any suggestions, if you have any recommendations, if you have a good experience or a bad experience, let us know it. Don't take for granted we know about it. We may not know it unless you tell us. And I'd rather hear it 2 or 3 times than not hear it at all.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I can definitely attest to the cleanliness. I thought I was felt like I was changing the chlorine tablets out of my pool when I walked into the restroom earlier. So that's a good thing in this environment that we're in right now. So, but just a couple to start us off. You mentioned power outages. Is that something to do with the physical plant here at the fairgrounds, or is that something to do with infrastructure, greater infrastructure needs in general for the Louisville metro area?
The infrastructure on our facility. My director of operations over both properties, Kevin McCoy, could give you the technical aspect of that. But I've actually walked out, they've dug it up, and I've seen where things just melt down. But you're talking about infrastructure is 25 years old, 30 years old. It's just worn out. And it's dangerous when that happens. We've also had situations where we brought in some huge generators, and maybe sometimes that doesn't always get the job done. Some of that needs replacement, and we've got some cost estimates on that, what it would take to fix some of that, get it up to speed. They've been on the list, but unfortunately, there's a lot of things on the list. It just didn't always make it through the process when we submit our request in.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, okay, Representative Gentry.
Thanks for being here, David. Ooh, that was loud. Thanks for being here, David, and
Thank you, sir.
appreciate your service leading Kentucky venues. Very, very instrumental to the city of Louisville, obviously. I have 2 questions today, Mr. Chair. I go one at a time if you would allow me, but
Absolutely.
thank you very much. First question, David, is COVID's been awful for Louisville. I know it's been awful for hospitality tourism industry in particular, especially here in Louisville, Kentucky venues. Can you help share with my colleagues, and I know you might have real numbers off the top of your head, but what kind of impact, generally speaking, from a numbers standpoint, and not only direct revenues to Kentucky venues, but maybe from an economic impact to the greater Louisville community, has the cancellation of all these events caused? And now we are coming back, but how much are we coming back?
Yes, sir.
And where do we stand?
Sure, I'll be glad to address that. And my colleagues here with me might be able to get more specific. I'll give you an example. March, when we first learned over a year ago when COVID hit, having a breakfast meeting with our friends for Louisville tourism down at one of our hotels. We do that every other month. We meet and talk and go over things. We had 26 events scheduled for the month of March. February been a good month for us. March is going to be we had 26 events. We had 14 here, 12 downtown. I left that breakfast meeting, walked back to my office downtown at Convention Center. As I walked in the door, people were leaving. I looked at my watch. It's too early for break, too early for lunch. Where are these people going? Their meeting planner, this was a Friday morning on national news, saw what was going on, canceled their meeting in midstream. We had food prepared. We had a lot of things going. By the time I got to my desk, I'm getting messages from those hotel folks we just been meeting with. What are you doing? You closing down? No, we didn't close down. They closed down themselves. It's like being at the airport and seeing all the flights get canceled. We went from 26 to 0 for the month of March instantly. Everybody that's what happened. Now what we did as a staff, we continued to make contact, try to rebook and see what their needs were. we put a compliance officer position in place prior to COVID. We had that months before COVID hit because we bring people out of state that aren't always in compliance with our laws and regulations in Kentucky. And that's really disturbing when they try to set up and can't operate. So we try to work with them to get them up to speed before they get here. Excuse me, take away the surprise. So we eventually turned that over our compliance people. And we started learning what do we have to do to take care of their needs to be in compliance. But we have many clients that want to go beyond that. What do we have to do to help them facilitate going beyond what's being required? And we'll do that if that's what they prefer. Also, the ability to do hybrid meetings. We could do that, but we weren't doing much of it. We have our own IT people and where we could move. We had one client we moved from convention center here, and most of theirs was like you're doing today. We were able to make that happen because we're all in-house, one shop under one roof. To give you the fiscal impact on that, you can imagine with an operating budget about $54 million a year, we were really hurt big time. Tony, how many million do you think that initial year was?
Today, in fact, since the pandemic started, we've about $45 million in revenue. Obviously, we've been able to adjust expenses, and without some of the events, we've had expense savings, but the net impact of the pandemic was about $25 million loss. So, and due to your all support, we were able to receive that one-time general fund appropriation in previous fiscal year, but we're still tracking to in about $10 million loss right now. So we're going to carry that forward into this fiscal year and continue to operate on a cash override with the trust and agency.
Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yes, obviously, and also want to make sure I make this point too. That's $45 million in revenue he just stated. And do you imagine the economic impact of that? I mean, I see Ashley and Kate over here and Charles. You know, that's a huge economic impact to the entire community of all the business that is connected to that.
We think on an annual basis, pre-COVID, about $385 million fiscal impact, economic impact from these two properties.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And if you would, Mr. Chair, if I could follow up with the other question that I had. Thank you. Some of you may not know this, colleague, but I'm a scientist. That's my background. I don't do much of that anymore, but I understand viruses. Okay, I'm no epidemiologist, but I understand what viruses are. Very, very challenging to deal with. I also understand air dispersion factors, and outdoors and indoors is two different animals. It really is. I really thought all along we've got to learn how to live with this virus, learn how to move forward with this virus. I've always felt that way. I've always thought we were a little bit overkill on outdoors, but I understood the fears. But my question is, what kind of indoor policies do you have at the fair and downtown convention center with masks?
Sure. Let me go ahead and address that. We received notice 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to put in effect at midnight that night, the mask policy for all state employees and everybody entering into a state office building. So we asked for clarification, and we are an office. I was making sure they apply to my office or just apply to our meeting space for people lease the space that they have it. And so we use the mask policy. And that's what we've been directed to do. So we immediately notified our people for coming in at midnight that night. We had clients on the property here that we had to go communicate that to them so they could get compliance. And then we had people downtown, and actually one did not fulfill their obligation because of the quick change, and not be able to comply with that change. And with that said, whatever the rules are, and the rules were that we posted. So all of our signs entering the property talk that, and we have the signage on the wall by the door entering in the requirements. One of the things too, we make announcements, and we meet with the meeting planners and help them understand and keep reinforcing it with their people. The question comes down to the enforcement. There are those that have exemptions from the mask policy. And since it's a policy, for as writing citations or violation of a reg or something, that's a different situation. And our people aren't trained to be able to inspect or enforce. And I've actually had people quite frankly, physically abused, their equipment damaged for trying to implement things of that nature. Because in this day and time, you never know who you're dealing with or how it can get escalated. Even though we have a wonderful security team, we're short of people, and our people like ushers and people meeting planners, they don't have any of that type training. And so we don't have the training for that, but we can enforce on employees. And that's what we're trying to do as state employees. But there is a limitation of what we can do and be effective with those guidelines. And I've had conversations with Dr. Stack early on. We want to do our part. We want to maintain our accreditation. We want to be known as a safe place to be as best as we can. And you can have the best science, but if you can't implement it, you've not accomplished anything. You can have a good implementation plan, but you don't have good science, you still don't get the results you want. So it takes good science, good policy, but you got to be able to implement it. And you got to think through that. And sometimes for all of us, with something new, without the training, it can be an ongoing challenge to be where we need to be with that.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. And I know it's an extreme challenge, for every business, every entity we go through this. Enforcement is incredibly challenging, as you can see. But we've just got to figure out a way to start using some common sense, or we're going to be dealing with this for a long time. And we see how devastating this is financially. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, may I have another comment briefly?
Make it brief.
I'll be okay. Just for those that may not have been familiar, I would not have been. It's amazing how this property gets utilized. In fact, both of them, besides hosting events. We're on the record. This is a place people go to for emergency support. We did the testing. They gave vaccinations here, broadband. You can get tested and get vaccinated in the same place. Pretty much most every county in Kentucky used this property to come pick up supplies early on. Most of the public didn't know it was here, but they were secured here, supplies they needed on pre-COVID, the early days of COVID. We've had ever national law enforcement agency, state agency, Border Patrol, Secret Service, National Guard, federal marshals, you name it, they've been here. They use our property. A lot of the time it's not publicized, so I'm not giving away any dates or anything that when that happens, but this gets utilized. We had a major food distributor in this region of the country that were loading tractor trailers in and out of this property. So that's what our people were doing, but we couldn't do anything else. We kept our people busy doing something to do what we could, what I consider public service. I stood in the South Wing and heard the Corps of Engineer and our administration talking back and forth about this hospital, who's going to do it, how they're going to do it. And they got finished. They said, "You have any questions?" Yeah, how about Wi-Fi? What we do is electricity goes out, because I knew that that'd be an issue, and how are we going to feed them? So it's a public service thing in addition to tourism too. I just want to mention it. It has value in this region. A lot of people may not recognize, but that takes infrastructure too to fulfill that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think we have one more question, but we're kind of running up on I know we have at least one more committee meeting today. So Senator Yates, if you want to submit that question, to the presenter in writing, I'm sure he will get back to you in a timely fashion. We also have the tourism cabinet that I think is going to be presenting here next via Zoom. Did you have anything else to add, Mr. Beck? No, that's okay.
Try to be informative. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Thank you, sir. All right. Next up, we have the tourism cabinet, who I understand will be appearing via Zoom. So I guess if you could direct your attention to the monitors.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Berry, the Secretary of Tourism, Arts and Heritage. Just checking to see if you can hear us.
We can hear you,
Okay.
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It is a pleasure to join you all today. Before I get started, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank David Beck, the State Fair Board members and his staff for the job that they have done putting the State Fair on. I know that we all had concerns about the safety and also we had concerns because we wanted to be together again to be able to do that. It is very much a part of the fabric of our Commonwealth and as well as being a large tourism draw and an economic driver. So congratulations to them and thank them for their diligence. We have, there are 13 different agencies in our cabinet, and they're all very unique. And I would have loved to have brought all 13 presenters here today and let you meet them and hear from them about the good work that they are doing. However, that would have taken way too long. So in addition to David, who is and the Kentucky State Fair Board, Kentucky Venues, who are part of our cabinet, I will just make some opening comments, and then you will hear from a handful of other members. But I just wanted to say they're all rock stars. It's just we wanted to get those that we really thought it was important that you all hear from. So the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet obviously is dedicated to promoting the Commonwealth as a premier travel destination for all travelers to enjoy. And during the pandemic, it's become even more important that we make those offerings to our own citizens of Kentucky as well. As the state's top tourism and marketing arm, our cabinet consists of 13 very diverse agencies, as well as 45 state parks, 13 golf courses, 12 equestrian rings, 32 campgrounds, and many other facilities. And really unlike any other executive branch cabinet, we are very retail in nature. And that presented its shares of both opportunities and challenges throughout the pandemic. If we could go to the next slide, please. So over the last year, or really the last 18 months, the array of services provided by our cabinet during the pandemic also created opportunities for us to play a very important role, hopefully, in helping position the Commonwealth at an advantage for defeating the pandemic and for being as strong as possible emerging from it. As Mr. Beck mentioned, the particular facility where you are today, as well as some other state facilities, the horse park and some of our state park sites served as COVID-19 testing and vaccination distribution sites. Our state parks also provided temporary housing for frontline healthcare workers and first responders during the early days of the pandemic, when those folks were needed to be out fighting in the trenches, but yet didn't want to go home and put their families at risk. We also provided in one of the state parks some housing for low acuity patients, and that helped to alleviate pressure on a local hospital. We served as safe and early election day voting sites. And even right now, we've just unveiled an incentive program called Vaccine Visit Kentucky, which will utilize state parks, campgrounds, and golf courses as a way of encouraging people to get their shot of hope and at the same time be able to enjoy one of those great, as we call them these days, safecations at one of our Kentucky State Park facilities. Next slide, please. So throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously the tourism industry has been one of the largest and most greatly impacted sectors. And as such, the spread of the virus caused travel to significantly decline last year. And for those who did travel, health and safety were one of their top priorities. Luckily for Kentucky, our abundance of outdoor recreation did help to lessen the impact of the pandemic as many travelers, both from out of state and in state, sought the outdoor activities and the attractions that Kentucky had to offer and made this a road trip destination. The actions taken by the Commonwealth and our citizens really helped to prevent the spread of COVID. And in so doing, that played a really large role in our ability to attract guests. You know, Kentucky sits within a day's drive of 2/3 of the nation's population. And we like to say, in addition to the beauty and the outdoor availability that our attractions and tourism in Kentucky have, that location and our reputation as being a safe destination really helped us to recover sooner than a lot of our surrounding neighbors did. And in fact, we show signs that our recovery began in the fourth quarter of calendar 20, where most of our neighbors really didn't begin until calendar 2021 in that recovery. As expected, tourism did decline both nationally and in Kentucky, but we continue to see positive signs of a rebound. And in spite of COVID, visitor trips in 2020 reached 67.8 million. Again, down, but certainly not at the levels that could have been anticipated. While that visitation desire remains strong, we do know that the Delta variant is causing people to increase their precautions and their concerns. We know that through some research that we did and some of our partners did, that in June and July, 62%, that's of this year, 62% of Americans said they were comfortable with going on vacation. However, 1 in 4 of them said that the Delta variant might impact for the negative their potential travel. 34% of travelers responded that COVID-19 will greatly impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. So we, usually think about when kids go back to school, that's the end of the travel season. But in Kentucky, the fall travel season is very, very strong. And many of our partners, the destination marketing organizations, and the attractions work very hard to draw travelers for weekend visits and longer, even during the winter months. And then spring, we usually come roaring back. 27% of travelers reported that road trips are still their preferred method of travel. And again, if you go back to that 2/3 of the nation's population is within a day drive, we are situated geographically to take advantage of that. 21% reported that their travel plans could be postponed due to the Delta variant, and 40% reported having utilized both the CDC and federal health experts for getting advice when they're making their decisions. We have done some tourism industry strategic planning. And one thing I want to point out about this is a plan for the tourism industry in Kentucky. This is not a strategic plan necessarily for the cabinet or a state agency. We want to know what our partners want to see as Kentucky comes out of this pandemic. So as we begin our efforts and we begin to focus on tourism post-pandemic, we believe that we have the ability to continue and to increase generating statewide revenue that will help both our rural and our urban communities following what has been an incredibly challenging year and really 18 months. We remain committed to working with those local partners. And as this strategic plan has begun to be put in place, we have had meetings. The cabinet did not meet with them. The facilitator of the plan went to all of the 9 regions and met with those local tourism directors and local officials to find out what they wanted to see, what their recommendations were for tourism going forward, and to identify opportunities. The strategic planning process encompasses 3 distinct work phases, which again has extensive input from our tourism partners. And we're also going to identify ways to incorporate diversity and inclusion into the industry as well. And our statewide marketing efforts have already begun, and some others are slated to begin in the fall and the spring to help attract new travel markets to Kentucky. That's going to be real important. We want to grow that pool of folks in which we're drawing from. This strategic plan is scheduled to be completed in November, and then we will have 12 months of subsequent work to implement the plan. So that's kind of a 30,000 feet overview of where the cabinet is, where the state of the tourism industry is, more importantly, what our hopes are and our optimism for where we are going. I'd now like to turn it over to the commissioner of one of those 13 agencies, Mike Manchett. He's the commissioner of the Department of Tourism.
Thank you, Secretary Barry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving us the opportunity to be here today. As Secretary Barry mentioned, Kentucky tourism is known nationally and recognized nationally for a number of items. Obviously, our horses, our bourbon, and really what COVID has, if there's any silver lining to the tourism industry, it did give more exposure to our fantastic outdoor opportunities. As the Secretary said, we were probably the most, at least the first industry hit. That impact remains. But we'll also be the industry, one of the industries that helps lead us out of this pandemic once we get COVID and the Delta variant under control. As one of the state's largest economic engines, the great thing about Kentucky tourism is that it serves as a mechanism for driving economic growth within all 120 counties. As the Secretary said, Kentucky's been recognized nationally as a leader for the Commonwealth's efforts to protect the health and safety of Kentuckians, and that showed up in our research. Every year, we do a visitor profile. We want to find out who's coming, where they're coming from, where they're visiting, what they're spending their money on. But we also ask questions about how safe do you feel in Kentucky? And as you can see on this slide, 60% of the travelers in 2020 viewed Kentucky as a safe destination. We're very proud of that. And despite COVID, traveler sentiment remains strong. On a weekly basis with our research partners, we saw that there was pent-up demand. And people and travelers were looking for destinations where they could socially distance, looking for a lot of outdoor destinations, but also safety and precautionary steps were and continue to be key influencers on travel decisions. Just earlier this week, had a new update from our research partner Longwoods. And due to the Delta variant, we are starting to see a little more hesitation in travel, back to the levels that we were seeing in late fall of last year. However, with all of that, tourism in Kentucky continues to show positive signs of rebound. Despite COVID-19, visitor trips to the Commonwealth reached 67.8 million trips in 2020, with direct visitor spending totaling $5.9 billion. The overall economic impact of the industry in Kentucky was $8.9 billion and generated and supported 75,000 plus jobs across the Commonwealth. One of the things that I think is sometimes not realized is the amount of tax revenue that we generate. And in 2020, even during COVID, we generated, our industry, $625 million in state and local taxes. Next slide, please. One of the questions I get often is, where is that money spent and in what areas? So of the $5.9 billion spent in Kentucky in 2020 by visitors, food and beverage spending captured $1.7 billion, which is 28% of the total. Lodging was $1.1 billion. You see retail 1.4 and transportation in 1.1 billion as well. Next slide, please. As the Secretary mentioned, the recovery of the tourism industry in Kentucky began in the fourth quarter of 2020, while many surrounding states did not experience the start of the recovery until later that spring. The economic recovery we have experienced, I think, can be directly related to the precautions that we took, combined with the wonderful tourism assets and the work done by our local DMOs. And when we say DMO, that's a destination marketing organization. Those are your local tourism commissions, your local convention and visitor bureaus. And they were wonderful partners throughout this, getting information out, being a central point, some doing food drives, some raising money for restaurant workers and hotel workers that had been displaced, et cetera. We have a great relationship with them, and I want to compliment them on all that they did throughout this. With travel limited opportunities, Kentucky's location makes us the ideal location for a road trip. Again, as the Secretary said, over about 90 to 92% of all of our visitation in a normal year is our drive visitation, folks driving into the state. Road trips are more popular now than ever, and they are a great way for us to explore the roads less traveled while in turn supporting local businesses. From a social media standpoint, we are highlighting each of our 9 tourism regions, one a month throughout this year, putting together itineraries, working with the local partners for tourism assets, photos, videos, and ways to promote them. One thing that showed up in our research was that our overnight visitors who did come did stay longer, and party sizes actually grew as more families traveled together. So that little COVID bubble of your friends, as you would say, when they traveled together, they stayed longer. That is an opportunity for us moving forward. On this slide, you see that the research is telling us that 65% of trips to Kentucky were day trips, and 46% of those day trip guests being from Kentucky. That's something that I do want to point out. Traditionally, Kentucky tourism, we market outside of the state to bring outside visitors. And the reason for that is they spend more money. They're more likely to spend the night and spend more money. This year, due to COVID, we pivoted, put all of our marketing efforts in the state, and we saw an increase of in-state visitation. As you also see on here, 36% of those trips to Kentucky in 2020 were overnight, and 37% were visiting friends or family. One thing I'll say is Kentucky is a very versatile destination. Our marketing efforts continue to highlight the signature industries of horses, bourbon, outdoors. We also, the other pillars that we promote are our history, our arts, our food, and our music as well. Our goal over the next few months is to expand our marketing efforts to reach new audiences and position Kentucky as a top-tier travel destination for visitors internationally and domestically. We are currently working with many of our convention cities, such as Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, Owensboro, and Paducah, Bowling Green, to name a few, on how we can help them attract meetings and conventions back to Kentucky and jumpstart that industry. Many of our urban cities continue to feel the economic impact from the loss of the meeting convention market. And let me be really clear on something too. When there's a large meeting in any of those destinations, the smaller communities benefit as well from day trips, people traveling to and from the conference and stopping in our attractions in smaller communities rely as well on meetings, conventions. We're also targeting the motor coach market by working with a Kentucky-based company, the group Travel Leader Magazine, targeting 16,000 motor coach operators and 10,000 meeting planners through some special editions of their magazine that we're sending out. As I wrap up, I would like to remind everyone, all of the legislators, that early last week we sent to each of you via email a breakdown by your district of the economic impact for your district. So you should have that in an email. If you have any questions, also the full reports of our visitor profile and our economic
market that reflects the challenges that we're hearing from employers all across the Commonwealth. There is pent-up consumer demands for goods and services. There is quite a bit of federal stimulus dollars that have hit our economy, and inflation, of course, are all creating challenges for employers all across Kentucky. And this workforce shortage has led to a lot of conversations about what caused this. And you all have probably heard me say before, this is a multifaceted problem that did not occur overnight. It's going to take some time to get out of with multifaceted solutions. One of the things many have pointed to is the extra $300 a week federal unemployment insurance benefit. Earlier this summer, the chamber did call on Governor Beshear to stop that unemployment insurance from the federal government, as half of the states have already done. At this point, that program will run out in September. So next month it will run out, and you have to give the federal government 30 days notice before you discontinue that. So at this point, that those benefits are set to expire next month. The governor did say publicly last week that even if the federal government extended those benefits, which right now we have really not heard talk about that, but if that, of course, is a topic of conversation, he would not do that for Kentucky. And we think that is the right thing to do because we have so many open jobs that really need to be filled. Others say that wages are too low and that if employers simply increase compensation, they could find all the workers that we need. But we look around and we see entry level jobs starting out at $15 an hour plus sign-on bonuses plus other benefits. And then there are some that say there really is no workforce shortage at all, and that employers are always saying they're looking for talented individuals to come to work for them. But the fact of the matter is that since March of 2020 until today, 90,000 people left the workforce and have not returned, only in Kentucky. 90,000 people from last March to today have left the workforce and have not returned. And workforce has been something that the chamber, we have talked about for many, many years. It's really been a focal point of our mission, and our members really recognize kind of the deep complexity of this issue. So with that in mind, I've talked to you all about this several times during the interim. We said, what can we really do to kind of make sure that we move the needle on this and really find kind of the root causes and what are some of the solutions to get us out of this problem? And so over the summer, the chamber has taken a deep dive, and we're producing a workforce report, which our senior policy analyst, Dr. Charles All, will talk about in just a minute. And we looked at the labor market data, we reviewed reports and academic research, and we talked with business leaders and experts on workforce issues. So we will be sharing with you today, in the short amount of time we have left, our new report called 20 Years in the Making, Kentucky's Workforce Crisis. And this really takes a very deep data-driven approach to this issue. Like I said, we can all tell the stories. We all hear the stories in our neighborhoods, in our communities, of employers looking for work. But this really, we do take a deep dive into the numbers to show a lot of the issues. And our goal is really to just reframe this conversation about workforce to show you all long-term trends and causes, and really kind of hit the button on a sense of urgency for this issue to start prioritizing this to tackle these in the upcoming General Assemblies. So before I turn things over to Charles, I do want to kind of talk to you about the three main takeaways from this report. Number one, workforce challenges are a nationwide issue, but data tells us they are worse in Kentucky than almost any other state in the nation. Number two, these challenges did not suddenly appear overnight. They did not suddenly appear over COVID. And like many things with COVID, a lot of our inequities were heightened here in Kentucky, and the workforce issue was absolutely one of them. And the third, and the most important really, are the causes of Kentucky's workforce challenges are multifaceted, they're complex, and they're often interrelated. And as a result, we need multifaceted, nuanced, and bold solutions. You all have taken great strides over the last couple of legislative sessions to really make sure that we're going to improve workforce participation and the workforce challenges that we have here in Kentucky. But as our report will make clear, there is much more work that needs to be done. So until we can fully really address the root causes of this problem and start reversing long-term trends, we'll never be able to live up to our full economic potential. But I want to kind of end my comments on a positive note. On the flip side of the coin, if we can meet these challenges and build the workforce that Kentucky needs, the Commonwealth could truly become an economic powerhouse that would compete with any other state that we're stacked up against. So today we want to talk to you all about building that foundation on which Kentucky can stand. So at this point, I'll turn over to Charles to walk through the report.
Thank you very much, Ashley, and thank you all for having us here today. I'm going to try to storm through this as quickly as I possibly can. Once upon a time, I used to teach college history and government, and I had a post-lunch course that I used to do, so I know what you're feeling, but just bear with me as I try to get through this as quickly as possible. I want to echo something that Ashley said. I know you all have had a lot of conversations throughout the interim about workforce issues, and I want to emphasize how important those conversations are and tell you that the business community appreciates the General Assembly's interest in this issue. We do feel like we're being heard on it, and we greatly appreciate that. We wanted to bring something new to the conversation, though, and try to create a greater sense of urgency around the issues that Kentucky is facing. And one of the ways we thought we could do that is by taking a very data-driven historical perspective to emphasize the magnitude of the problem that we're dealing with. At the same time, we wanted to bring more conversations around the multifaceted approach that we need to deal with this problem. So the bulk of this presentation is going to fall into just the two sections. First, we're going to take a data-driven and historical examination of Kentucky's workforce challenges, and then we'll get into root causes and solutions. And afterwards, for the time that we have, we'll be happy to take some questions. So I want to start by just getting our bearings by talking a little bit about just sheer workforce level numbers. So the chart that we have pulled up right now shows us that in any given month of the last 20 years, we've had about 2 million Kentucky adults participate in the workforce. And just so we're all really clear on this, the term workforce that I'm using, this is a Bureau of Labor Statistics definition. So that's going to include individuals that are employed, so these people that actually have jobs, are going to work. It's also going to include individuals who are unemployed. And it's always important to remember that under BLS definitions, unemployed indicates an individual that is actively looking for work. So they don't have a job, but they're actively looking for a job, and that's why we include them as part of the labor force. More than 95% of Kentucky's workforce is employed, 4.4% are unemployed. During the pandemic, you can see on this chart how significantly our workforce shrank. That's kind of over there on the far right-hand side of the screen, took an absolute dive. Overall, throughout the start of the pandemic, we saw about 112,000 individuals exit our workforce. So folks that sort of just fell out of that system entirely. Since that point, we have not recovered a large number of that. We have about 90,000 workers short of where we were before the pandemic. And so when you think about some of the concerns and challenges you hear about from employers, this is the thing that they're filling. We have significantly fewer workers than we did prior to the start of the pandemic, and it's not even by a small amount. This is very, very large scale issue. So this is a serious problem that we're talking about. If we take a look, though, at Kentucky's total workforce levels in the context of the adult population, the problem gets far more significant. So the chart that I'm showing you here shows Kentucky's workforce participation rate over the past 2 decades. You all have talked quite a bit about workforce participation rates, but I want to be clear on what we mean by that. We're talking about the percentage of the civilian non-institutionalized adult population. That is a population, individuals 16 or older. About 3.5 individuals fall into that population. So that's what we're talking about in this sense. As the chart shows, Kentucky's workforce participation rate has been in a state of decline for about 20 years. Going back to January 2000, we had about 63.5% of Kentucky adults in the workforce. Just before the pandemic hit, that had fallen all the way to 59.2. During the pandemic, it fell to 56%. As of June, we were about 0.3 percentage points higher. So not a whole lot of recovery. What this means is about 43.7% of Kentucky's adults were not participating in the workforce as of June 2021. In terms of sheer numbers, that equates to roughly 1.5 million Kentucky adults, a very, very large number. So the decline that we're talking about here with Kentucky's workforce participation rate is not something that's happening in a vacuum. It's actually happening, it's mirroring a national trend. So on this chart here that you can see, the US workforce participation rate has also declined over the past 20 years, but I want to emphasize a very important distinction. As you can see on the chart, there is a significant gap between the US workforce participation rate and the Kentucky workforce participation rate. So we're following the same trend, but ultimately there is a very, very significant gap in terms of the rates at which Kentucky adults work. If we compare Kentucky to other states, our workforce participation rate ranks about 48th lowest in the nation. Among neighboring states, we are the second lowest. It's just West Virginia over there that has a slightly lower workforce participation rate, but on average about 4 to 7 points higher in every other single state that surrounds us. This is an important thing to talk about when you're dealing with workforce participation rates. The population that I've been talking about so far includes all adults 16 or higher. So that means you're going to include a lot of our older population, a lot of retirees. One of the ways you can kind of get around that issue is by looking strictly at our prime working age workforce participation rate. And that's what we have on the screen up here. So this covers adults that are between the ages of 25 and 54. These are individuals where, generally speaking, this population is the population we would expect to be working on a regular basis. What's really kind of interesting with this chart is it's a little bit erratic. As you can see, we could talk more about that later if folks are interested. But overall, it is a slight downward trend. The bigger things I would call your attention to again here, though, is we have the US prime age workforce participation rate and the Kentucky. Again, that same gap that we were talking about persists. The other thing that this chart does not show you, however, is that this overall population, that overall prime age working population, has been getting smaller over the course of the past 20 years. It's shrunk by about 4%. The US prime age working force population, that's actually grown slightly. So that's a significant problem we have here in Kentucky, and one that I think is important to point out. I want to talk about geography very, very briefly. This shows you the workforce participation rates by county using census data going back to 2019. It's a 5-year average. You can see that workforce participation rates are not uniform at all throughout the state of Kentucky. Up in the northern part of the state, Boone County in particular, very, very high work rates up there, 70% or more. Certain counties in the eastern part of the state, closer to 40, 30. I think Elliott County is around 27, 28%. So fairly low work rates throughout some of our rural areas and eastern parts of the state. So the report goes into a lot more detail on a variety of other issues in addition to the ones I've talked about. We talk about various age groups, differences between men, women, racial groups. We explore geographical variations in more detail. We also take a look at a number of other workforce metrics. They all kind of tell the same story, though. No matter how you slice this apple, it shows a declining workforce participation rate, as well as significant differences between Kentucky's workforce participation rate and the national workforce participation rate. And those are two of the key issues that we are really wanting members of the General Assembly to hone in on, these two key takeaways that are included in your slide deck. These are the absolute most important things. If we left you with anything, take note of these two important takeaways. So why do we care about this? Why is this significant? There's a variety of different reasons why we need to think about this issue. Chairman Wheeler, do I need to cut off here in a minute?
Yes, I'm afraid we're really running up on a hard break here. We also have a special announcement that we need to get to before the committee meeting's over. I know Co-Chair King had a brief question, and maybe I'll let her ask that, and then maybe you could frame your conclusion to answer that and hit on your high points.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. May we go back to the slide that had the counties on it? I was just wondering, I couldn't see it from here. One county is outlined in red. What does that signify?
That's where I had the mouse on my cursor,
Oh, okay.
hovering over that. So anybody representing that county, nothing's going on there.
Yeah.
We're going to fix that in the actual report. Good eye.
Okay, well, we've answered that. So
That's a great question.
Yeah,
More
great
of those
question.
questions are welcome.
Well, if you could take about 5 minutes to wrap it up, and then I'm going to invite our special guests to make a brief presentation before we close the meeting.
That is no problem at all. I'm gonna just focus here on this last slide here that gets into some of the root causes and solutions. And one of the reasons that we really wanted to do this report and talk with you all about this is a lot of the conversations around the workforce shortage in Kentucky. People really tend to fixate on singular solutions. Ultimately, that's not going to move the needle in this issue. If we focus just on these one things that we kind of identify as choke points, that's not going to cut it. We're going to need a multifaceted approach. Some of these things are going to be perhaps outside of the ability of the General Assembly to address. For example, one of the big drivers of low workforce participation rates and declining workforce participation rates is retirements. We can't force people to come out of retirement and go back to work. We could perhaps incentivize them to do that, but that's going to be something that kind of fall out the scope of what we can do and can't do in terms of public policy. In terms of things though, like skills gaps, access to childcare, dealing with health issues, substance use disorder, incarceration, criminal justice reform, benefit cliffs, social safety nets, including the programs like unemployment insurance, doing things to boost population growth, that is within the power of the General Assembly to address. And those are the types of issues that we really want to encourage you all to fixate on, to focus on with aggression, and to take these things head on. And so I think we can kind of start to just wrap up there. The report will get into specifics on these issues. We're not going to just say, do criminal justice reform. We have specific things in mind, actionable items that we think the General Assembly can pursue that'll have meaningful change. And again, to reiterate what Ashley said, if we can do this, if we can actually reverse these trends in our workforce participation rate and close those gaps, think about the economic powerhouse that Kentucky could truly become and how much better off many of your communities could be if we're able to get that accomplished. It's a very laudable goal. I think it's a very important one, and the chamber is certainly encouraging the General Assembly to pursue it. With that, I'll stop there.
Well, you did a magnificent job in wrapping that up. So thank you very much for your presentation. Again, if anybody has any questions, please put those in writing to the chamber, and we'll see that the answers are circulated amongst the membership.
And I would just say this report is being published right now, so we will get copies to all of you all in the days coming up.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, there's an item not on the agenda that we were going to address briefly before we adjourned here. I'd like to invite my colleagues, Senator Alvarado and our Senate President Robert Stivers to the chair to make a brief announcement. Oh, we're also very fortunate here to have the Speaker of the House as well, Speaker Osborne, and our minority floor leader in the Senate, Morgan McGarvey. So great. Oh, and Joni. So and Joni. Sorry, very auspicious. Auspicious group of people. So thank you very much, President Stivers. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think some people have heard this, a little bit about it, but some haven't. And I don't think the city of Louisville nor the state of Kentucky has. But we have worked for several years collectively, bipartisan, bicameral, through both chambers, working with our respective associations throughout the United States, be it the SLC, the CSG, or others. And over the years, we have been able to get one of our own members from the General Assembly on a board. And that work has paid off for some benefits for the city of Louisville and the state of Kentucky. That individual that we got on the board several years ago, Senator Ralph Alvarado. And with that, I want to turn it over to Senator Alvarado to talk about something that has occurred, but now has been established and set as much in stone as possible under the circumstances we currently live in. But Senator Alvarado, if you would, please.
Sure. So thank you all for your attention on this. We're kind of excited. Many of you know, we've got several organizations that people can attend as far as legislative organizations that help us in terms of crafting legislation, helping solve problems. NCSL, which is the National Conference of State Legislatures, is probably the largest. And I know that a lot of our LRC staff that help us in a lot of our committees rely on that organization as well for them to help in helping them do their jobs well as well. And so every year we have a conference that's attended. And it's the biggest one. We're having one, I think, in Tampa this year. And Louisville was able to host that back in 2010. Being on the executive committee, about 2 years ago, they announced that they were looking for someone to host the event in 2024. I went ahead and volunteered the state of Kentucky, so we'd be proud to do that. Had some conversations initially. They had talked about their experience in 2010, told them that the city was basically larger, newer, and we had newer hotels, a new convention center. We were prepared to host that event here if they were willing to do it. And so had some conversations, met with some of the folks here at our convention center in Louisville, took a tour, got some books, went back to the next executive committee meeting, presented that, made the pitch. And they came out, checked things out as well. So it's been a long process, but they like the venue and they're ready to come here in 2024 to bring that event. It's a large event. Any of you have gone to an NCSL event, you know it's going to be, I think when we hosted it in 2010, there were around 5,000 people at that time. That's just legislators. That doesn't include the press, people, other kinds of vendors that might be present at those. I think we had 9,000 rooms in 2010 that were rented out in Louisville and the surrounding area as far as hotel accommodations. Back then it was a 4 day event. This next one's going to be a 3-day event. We've changed the format in NCSL and how we run those, but really exciting news for Louisville and for the state of Kentucky, and at least something to look forward to. We know right now we're looking at peaks of COVID and all kinds of things that we're looking at. We can now look forward to 2024 to be able to host and display what Louisville has to offer, what Kentucky's all about to the rest of the country. And I think we always put on a really good performance for that. And people always come and often talk about wanting to stay. So we're really excited to announce that today. And we also have Tim Story, who's the executive director from NCSL. He can give a little bit of information as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Stivers. It feels a little bit like being home here. I was here in 2010 when we had what we call our legislative summit. It is the largest gathering in the United States every year of public policy officials to discuss policy. And it's not, people come together and they listen for solutions and ideas for what you're dealing with in your state capitals. And they're not Republican or Democratic ideas or liberal or conservative ideas. It's a nonpartisan where we listen to everybody and have bring people together across the parties to spend time together. And NCSL's mission is to strengthen the legislative institution. So the whole purpose of your organization is to make you guys better at what you do. The second part of our mission is to let you share ideas, both legislators and legislative staff. There are 7,383 state legislators around the country. And of course, the best ones here in the Bluegrass State. But goes without saying.
At least today they are.
Most of them today, yes. And of course, there's a lot of great ideas, and you don't want to just reinvent the wheel. What are they doing in this state or that state? So that's what we're all about, and this bringing people together. And let me tell you, as we sit here today, when it's hard to figure out how to bring people together, it's kind of nice to be talking about 2024 and bringing this thing back full, because it's not easy right now. We're navigating a lot of challenges, but I'll tell you this, people are dying to get together. You know, when we're holding up meetings, people are showing up as safely and best they can. So that's pretty cool. The total size of the conference will probably go over well over 5,000 people, because Louisville is a pretty darn attractive place. And we can put on a great program. We can have great speakers and leadership, but it's really about the location. And Louisville has a lot going for it. And as you all know, and Kentucky at large, people love this part of the country. And I imagine we'll have a pretty big turnout. It's actually well over 1,000 legislators. The total number is well over 5,000, over 1,000 legislators, all 50 states. And from around the world, we tend to get 300 or 400 international parliamentarians who attend this thing. So we'll have people from Australia and Europe and Africa and everywhere else. So I just want to say thank you. We'll take a lot of work. It'll be a partnership, and can't thank Senator Alvarado enough, man. He is a great partner for NCSL here in Kentucky, as are the staff, the Legislative Research Council and commission. I said that wrong, it's commission, and what they do to support us and support you guys. So thank you all very much. And man, if you have any questions, Senator Wheeler, Mr. Chair, or anybody else, I'll happily answer them. And if the speaker wants to say something, that'd be good too.
Yeah. Speaker, do you have anything to add?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing us to speak here. One of the reasons we wanted to do this for the Economic Development Committee, obviously, is, you know, tourism is the lifeblood of Louisville. And we've seen that under assault over the last 18 months. You know, nothing has been impacted more than the service industry and the hospitality industry. And that is such a key part of Louisville's economy. And just since 2010, I can count just off the top of my head, probably 6 or 8 new hotels that have been developed, including the complete redevelopment of the Galt House, the new Omni Hotel, the Distill, Moxie, Aloft. I mean, there's incredible redevelopment, along with the development of the distillery experiences. The restaurant community here in Louisville is second to none. So it's a great opportunity to breathe some energy into downtown Louisville, which has been hit so hard, but also to showcase the improvements and the enhancements and the great changes that have gone on in Louisville to the rest of the country. And I think it will pay significant long-term benefits for the community. So Tim, appreciate your announcement and the coordination that we've had with it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ivers, I believe you had a.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you to defer to the speaker, but understand that the minority leaders, Democrat leaders of both chambers are from here in Louisville, Morgan McGarvey and Joni Jenkins. Morgan was still in the third grade in 2010. Joni's like me. She's been around a while. She was here in 2010. But this truly takes a lot of cooperation of everybody from our staff, the city staff. And this has been something the speaker and I have been promoting through Ralph Alvarado, but truly without bipartisan support, we don't get to this point. And without our counterparts of the other party, we don't make it a successful event. And it takes a full 2 years. Tim was saying of all the hotels that the speaker, he's got contracts with almost all of them right now. So I truly would defer to Joni or Morgan if they have anything to say, because I think this is a good announcement for their hometown, but all of our town.
As the person up here and probably the person in the room that's been to more NCSL legislative summits than anybody else, I've been here for 27 years. So nobody throws a party like Kentucky throws a party, and Louisville's a great venue for that. And I'd like to thank you for the help that NCSL gives us every single day. We rely on your staff as we're making policy decisions, looking at questions, and they do a marvelous job. So as somebody who represents part of Louisville, we are really excited about being NCSL being here in 2024. And everybody, I think, is looking forward to a good party and a good policy sessions. They have the best. They do have the best. We talk a lot about the party, but the sessions that they have are some of the best that you'll ever attend. Leader McGarvey.
Thank you, Leader Jenkins. I want to say to my good friend, President Stivers, I was not in the third grade, but I was still living at home. This is a great announcement. And I think it's important for people to know, we always talk about each other in our legislative capacities, but we all have other responsibilities and jobs too. My office is at the corner of 4th and Liberty in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. I've been going to the office every day through all the changes and through all the things that have been going on. And I think what people don't realize, Louisville is a convention city. And there's only about, I was talking to Tim with NCSL, there's only about 20 cities in the country that could handle a convention of this size, and it's coming to Louisville. And it is such an awesome thing, because whether it's our baseball, our horse betting, or our bourbon, I think people are going to come here and have a good time. But downtown, there are new restaurants springing up down there. There are new hotels springing up downtown. Our convention center has been completely remodeled. We are going to get to showcase not just Louisville, but Kentucky at this amazing conference. It's a great opportunity for us as a state, a city, and a legislature to put on a good, informative, nonpartisan policy conference for the rest of the country. And I couldn't be more excited and so grateful to the work of Senator Alvarado and President Stivers, Speaker Osborne, Leader Jenkins, and for NCSL for choosing Louisville. It's just a big win for our community when we should be announcing some big wins right now.
I think I speak for the entire committee that this is a major, wonderful announcement that does show off our Commonwealth, and that, as President Stivers and Senator McGarvey said, Louisville is Kentucky's city. It's the place where I'm born, and I recently found out also the place where one of my favorite movies, Stripes, was made. I had no idea that actually was filmed right here in Louisville. So I'm very glad about this announcement, and I look forward to attending in 2024. President Stivers.
One other comment. I believe, we Cleo Battle has taken over, I believe, here, and talking to Cleo and Karen Williams prior, I believe this is the largest convention that the city of Louisville has booked right now.
All right.
That's the size and the prominence of the NCSL.
Thank you very much, President Stivers. And thank you, Senator Alvarado, for your hard work. I know several of us have to get to the state government committee, so I want to thank our presenters today, and glad we ended on a high note. The next meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Economic Development will be held on September 23rd at 9 a.m. The next meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Tourism, Small Business, and Information Technology will be held on September 23rd at 1 p.m.